Hi, this is Abul Hussein coming to you live and direct from London, the United Kingdom. And today I have a very special guest with me who's going to talk to you about virtual conferences and how they can help position you as an expert to your prospects, to your target audience, to your niche market, whatever you want to call it. He's joined me from Canada. I believe it's Ontario, but he can clarify that. And before I introduce him, if you are watching this video outside our Facebook group for social media marketing agencies, find the link and make sure you join in, especially if you are starting or looking to grow an existing agency. So without a further ado, Andrew Izumi, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Abdul. I really appreciate you inviting me on here, and it's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. So why don't you give us a bit of a background of what you do and give us a bit of a kind of an intro into the world of virtual conferences?
Yeah, so I'm very, very enthusiastic about this. I'm extremely excited about virtual conferences because I came upon them myself. I think it was merely just a few years ago. And then so what I do with the company Summit Momentum is we help other experts, coaches, and consultants really be able to put on and run their own virtual conferences. Now, this is done without having to post on social media daily, without having to run paid ads, growing a big YouTube channel with millions of subscribers. But it's for those experts, coaches, and consultants that are really trying to get traction in the industry. They're very good at whatever they do, but they need help leveraging their own authority or their own influence.
So, I mean, when people hear of virtual conferences, they might get quite scared in terms of, well, how do you organize one? How do you attract people? So what are the mechanics of actually organizing a virtual summit or conference?
Yeah, you know, it's a very funny way that you put the question, because putting a virtual conference or a virtual summit together is all about organization. If you're very organized, if you're very strategic, the way that you put it together, it can become very simple, almost like putting together a set of Legos or just following instructions. But, you know, I made this mistake myself. The first time that I got into a virtual conference is I got really excited about it and I jumped right in, and I realized very quickly that I was in way over my head, that I didn't have any of the processes or any of the systems in place. But ever since then, a few years ago, I developed a system to make sure that you can just strategically get everything aligned, and all you got to do is cross your T's and dot your I's to get different things in place.
And to organize a summit, I mean, one of the things I know, it helps you to position yourself as an expert if you have kind of no following or no niche. But do you need to be an expert yourself? I mean, why would people want to work with you?
So the really cool thing is you don't have to be an expert, but you do have to have a passion on whatever the virtual conference is going to be about. So whether this is something about knitting, or maybe it's computer hardware, possibly it's something like mountain biking or skiing or rock climbing. As long as you have a passion for it, and then you're knowledgeable enough about the subject, then it's going to allow you to really ask the right questions to the experts that are in place. Well, let's take myself, for example. I really enjoy the hobby of rock climbing, but by no means am I a professional or an expert rock climber. That being said, I'm very enthusiastic, or I'm very passionate about the sport. So I know what the gear does. I know what some of the terminology or the verbiage is. So it allows me to really ask those experts the specific questions, because when you put on a virtual event or a virtual summit, you really want to be able to tell a story. You know, it's interesting, Abdul, is I found out that in the market, virtual summits and virtual conferences, I think I'll stick with the terminology of virtual conferences. Everybody seems to want to do one these days, especially because of the state of the state with the world, and, you know, people aren't traveling nearly as much. So instead of doing the live conferences, they want to do these virtual events. And the funny thing is, everybody thinks that they can do one. I've had a few people come to me and say, you know what, Andrew, I want to do a virtual conference. Let me just get a 30-minute call from you and see if you can tell me how to do it, and then I'll just put the rest of it together myself. And I tell them I'd be more than happy to give you your 30-minute call.
So we just had a bit of a technical issue, but I've got Andrew back here again. So Andrew, you're saying some people schedule like a 30-minute call with you, and then they just want to go off and do it again. So do you want to just continue with the answer you're giving us there?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, Abul. A lot of people do. They schedule a 30-minute call with me, and they'd like to go off and do their virtual conference on their own. And I tell them exactly what they need to be thinking about before they put this together. And then they haven't become clients because I've had them do their virtual conferences, and then I ask them about the results later. And oftentimes it's almost no growth of the email list and no sales. So there's really no benefit to the customer. So when you put together a virtual conference, it is extremely important that you really have your structure to begin with. This isn't something where you go after the biggest influencers that are out there, and as long as you can get the big names, like whoever's in your niche, to be on your stage, it's going to be successful. That's just not really the case. If you don't actually have a customer journey and a structure for your customers to go through, there's really no reason for them to attend your conference. What you'll find is that if you have a lot of the big names, you'll have a great amount of signups, whether that be 20, 30,000 signups, but nobody's going to show up to the event. And that's what's really important. I would rather have 10,000 people show up to my event and be actively engaged than to have 50,000 people sign up and never hear from them ever again. Because at the end of the day, you want your virtual conference to not only give your customers value, but you want to get some money in your pocket as well.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of organizing a virtual conference, right, how long does it take to kind of come up with the idea and then to execute it to the point where you've actually run a successful conference?
Yeah, so I guess it all depends on the stage that the person that's putting on the virtual conferences is at. But they have to know, it comes back to the very basics and the very foundation is whatever that you do in business, who's your audience and who do you serve? What is your need? Because at the end of the day, we want this virtual conference to not be very broad. We want it to be niche down or very specific. So you want to be able to ask yourself, who's the customer that you serve and what is the outcome that you're looking to give them? So there was my last virtual event was called the Ultimate Sales Momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been in the world of sales for over the past decade, before I stepped into the virtual conference industry. And so what I understood about this virtual summit was that in sales, a lot of times people are very good at getting to whatever their sales quota is, whether that if you're an entrepreneur and if you're making $100,000 a year, if you're making $1 million a year, you're very good at getting to that point in time. But it's very hard to get above that. So what the Ultimate Sales Momentum was all about is that if you're a sales professional, if you own your own business, how is it that you blast past that sales ceiling? So that's the outcome that I wanted to give my customers out of that event. And for you to put on your own virtual conference, you need to know exactly who your customer is in the beginning, who you're talking to, and what is the desired goal that they're looking to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
From there you can position your speakers. There's plenty of speakers out there that have a multitude of things that they could talk about. Like if you talk to me about business in general, I could tell you about what the marketing looks like. I could tell you about what the sales strategy looks like. I could tell you about how the organization of the summit comes about. There's many different things. So the nice thing is that almost any speaker that you get to, as long as you target your questions in a certain way, you can extract that right content. But if you don't know what the goal is, what the end goal is for your customer, then it's very hard to be able to ask those right questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
when you ask,
sorry, carry on. I thought you had finished there. Sorry, carry on. Okay, you're doing great.
When you ask the questions, you want to be able to lead your customer through a customer journey or through a story so that they ascend from day 1 to day 2 to day 3, or from the beginning to the end of the virtual conference.
Perfect. And in terms of marketing and getting people to sign up, are you expecting on the speakers to have like a following that you tap into, or do you recommend that someone runs paid ads, or how do people find out about this conference? What's usually the marketing strategy there?
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, Abul, because typically virtual conferences I've heard the number in anywhere from 40 to 60 people, or maybe like 20 to 60 people, 20 to 60 speakers are suggested to be on the conference. And I myself find that conferences are a lot more powerful and a lot more beneficial when you have a smaller number of speakers. But what I do is I try to target speakers that have specific purposes. So some of the speakers are going to just be purely factual. They're going to have the knowledge. This would be somebody that maybe has a doctorate degree or a PhD, but they really don't have a following on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube channel, so on and so forth, but their content is really good. Then there's going to be speakers that have that great following, where they just have a big social media presence. Maybe they have a large email list, whatever the case may be. They look good on camera. Who knows? And they're gonna fill that specific portion of your summit. And then finally, you're gonna have the people that'll be your top dogs or your anchor influencers. These are that probably won't promote your event, but they're gonna have a credible name where people just know of them. So for me in the Ultimate Sales Momentum, who we had Kevin Harrington, who's the original shark on the TV show Shark Tank, and then he was our anchor for the event. So to answer your question about the marketing, is you'll have different pots where you're going to want to run social media ads off of Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it may be, to those top influencers, because they already have a following, but you can't expect them to promote your event. Now you're going to have the other influencers that do have an active following, and they're probably going to be very interested in promoting your event, whether it be for an affiliate commission or whatever the case may be. And then for the other ones, for those PhD or the doctorate people, they're strictly going to be for content. And then through the marketing, you're going to have to market that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So to the question, it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of paid media, and it's a little bit of traffic driven from your speakers as well.
That's the perfect answer that you've given there. So thank you very much for sharing that strategy. Now, you mentioned Kevin Harrington was the anchor for your virtual summit. So that brings me nicely onto my question about financials. Because to obviously get someone like Kevin Harrington or a big name, people would think you must need to shell out quite a few dollars to get them on board. So the speakers that you get on there, I mean, are you paying them a fee to appear, or are you allowing them to pitch? I mean, what's really their motivation to work with you, especially when they're a very big name? Do you need to pay them up front, or what's the financial model? Are you making the money off the front end ticket sales as well, or is there a bit of back end selling? How do the financials stack up?
Yeah, so the way that I do it is because I work with expert coaches and consultants that are trying to get more known in the industry. Oftentimes, these individuals, they don't have a large bank account to shell out $20,000 to $40,000 to speakers just to try to get them on board. So what I do is I teach my students exactly how to get speakers without having to pay them. I like to structure everything as a win-win-win through my virtual conference. That's a win for myself, that's a win for the speakers, and that's a win for the audience members or the customers as well. So like for all the speakers that I got throughout my summit, like the last summit, the Ultimate Sales Momentum, I didn't pay any of them. What I did was I said, hey, this is going to be your chance to have a stage, and I'm going to put you on the digital platform. I actually translated the Ultimate Sales Momentum into a best-selling book as well, and then we even made a study guide here, and then here's our best-selling book. And I said, you're going to be published on Amazon, you're going to be a best-selling author, you're going to have your platform online. So I'm going to allow you to give me one lead magnet of yours. It does have to be a free lead magnet, and then also give me your website, and then I'll make sure to drive traffic towards yourself and funnel them into whatever the funnel that you have. So that way, when people are coming through the conference, whether it's me actually speaking to them through email or through voice or follow-ups through the coaching calls that we have afterwards, I'm continually to drive traffic to them, because the virtual conferences that I put on, I do put them on as a one-time launch, and then after that, I'll run them as an evergreen event again and again and again. Relaunches come, maybe every 6 months or so I can do a big relaunch, maybe every half year, where you change the structure of the landing page, maybe the copy a little bit, just to make it version 2, version 3, so on and so forth. Maybe if there's another speaker or two that you want to put on board, you can do that. But I like to see these virtual events, virtual conferences, run as an evergreen product.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how much of the actual conference itself is live, and how much of it is kind of pre-recorded?
So because of the way that I do it all pre-recorded. I want to do it all pre-recorded because I like to tighten up, or I like to organize all the content beforehand. And I also like to make sure that all the pieces fall in place, because everybody that I interview for the virtual event, not everybody makes the cut. Sometimes the interview doesn't go quite as according to plan, and the content really isn't what I was looking for. So I'll just have to say, well, unfortunately, this interview didn't quite make it. Hopefully, we can use the content for some other time. But for the specific event, it just doesn't make sense. That way, the customer is ensured that when they go through my virtual conference, they're really going to get the desired outcome.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And you've got a free Facebook group for people who might be interested in launching a virtual conference or a summit. I mean, what is the purpose of your group? If someone joins your group, what can they get out of it?
And so the group is called Authority Momentum, because putting on a virtual conference is all about building your authority to build up the momentum in your business. If you've hit that ceiling and if you're stuck at that specific level, like how do you get past it? And running a virtual conference is the easiest way to do it. And it's the thing that's going to get you fast enough. So if you go ahead and you join my group, what we do is we do live trainings inside of there. I've got a free report inside of there as well. We're going to go ahead and help you build out your own virtual conference. We're going to do that all for free through the Facebook community. But if you'd like to get further detail, we can also work with you ourselves.
Perfect. So if you are looking to expand your influence and be perceived as an expert, do make sure to find Andrew's profile. I'm going to tag him here, and join his Facebook group. So Andrew, thank you very much for your time.